After years of dedication, I graduated alone. Days later, when I walked into my parents' house, my sister smirked and said, "Your degree means nothing." I checked my phone. 37 missed calls. One text read, "You owe us an apology." That was how my graduation ended. My name is Patrick. I'm 22. Last June was supposed to be the proudest day of my life. I had made it through college without much help, balancing late-night diner shifts, tutoring jobs, and freelance work just to cover rent and bills. Graduation was the finish line, a moment to finally prove to myself, and maybe even to my family, that I had achieved something worth celebrating. But when I crossed the stage, the audience was full of strangers. Not one familiar face, no parents, no grandmother, nobody. The empty rows where my family should have been felt like a spotlight on my loneliness. I have a younger sister, Julia, 2 years younger. She has always been the golden child. My parents claimed she was sensitive and needed extra care, which meant she always got what she wanted. At 16, she received new clothes, branded shoes, and even a car, while I walked miles to school when my bike broke. When she got pregnant at 19, my parents framed it as something beautiful. She wasn't a teenager in trouble. She was a glowing young woman who brought the family together. They even threw her a lavish baby shower, more like a wedding reception. The date? The same day as my graduation. At first, I thought it was bad timing, maybe a scheduling issue. I reminded my mom about the clash, and she said, "We'll figure something out, maybe split the day." But weeks later, Julia's invitations went out. No mention of me or my graduation. When I brought it up again, my dad said firmly, "Patrick, you'll have many ceremonies in your life, but your sister, this is once in a lifetime." I sat there holding my phone so tightly I thought it might break. How could they dismiss years of effort like it was nothing? Still, on graduation morning, I held on to hope. I kept checking my phone, waiting for a message saying they were coming. Nothing. In the parking lot, families arrived with flowers and balloons. Still, nothing. When my name was called, I accepted the truth. They weren't coming. I walked across the stage alone, forced a smile at the dean, and accepted the diploma that had cost me countless sleepless nights. Then my phone buzzed. I thought it was a congratulation. Instead, it was my father. "You owe us an apology." My heart sank. I reread it, thinking I had misunderstood. But the words were there, along with 37 missed calls, as if I had done something wrong, as if I had abandoned them. Meanwhile, friends stood with their families surrounded by hugs and flowers. I sat by the fountain, staring at my phone. What was I supposed to apologize for? For existing outside my sister's shadow? For hoping to be recognized? That text marked the first real break in my relationship with them. I had tolerated the favoritism and the dismissive remarks before, but this was different. This was open disregard. I didn't reply. I walked home with my diploma in a plain folder. No balloons, no family dinner, just silence. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Later that night, I checked my phone again. Dozens of messages and voicemails. My mother's voice was sweet but condescending. "Patrick, honey, this wasn't about you. We all had to be there for your sister. Family comes first." The next message was sharper. "You embarrassed us by ignoring your father's calls. Julia was crying because you didn't congratulate her. Do you really want to ruin her day?" By the third, my father's voice thundered. "Pick up the phone and stop acting like a child. You've upset your mother. Apologize for your attitude." That word, apologize, haunted me. I sat in my room, staring at the unopened diploma case. Once again, my achievement had been reduced to nothing for the sake of family unity. When I got my first job at 16, I couldn't talk about it because Julia was failing school. When I was accepted to college, we didn't discuss it because Julia hadn't applied anywhere. And now my graduation had been erased by her baby shower. 2 days later, I made the mistake of visiting home. Pink balloons and confetti still covered the house. Julia sat like a queen in the recliner, while my mom fussed over baby clothes. My father's first words, "Look who finally showed up." No smile, no congratulations, just accusation. Julia didn't even look up before saying, "Did you bring something for the baby? We're still accepting gifts." I had spent all I had on a suit for graduation. I couldn't afford another gift. I told them I came to talk, but my mom cut me off. "Patrick, your attitude is unacceptable. We had to choose, and your sister needed us more. You should have understood that." I whispered, "I needed you too." My father's eyes narrowed. "Don't start with selfish talk. Walking across a stage is nothing compared to bringing life into this world. You should be grateful we're even acknowledging you now." There was nothing to acknowledge. No balloons, no cards, no celebration. Julia smirked. "Don't sulk. You'll get over it. Besides, you'll probably have another graduation for your master's, right? This one was just practice." Her words knocked the air out of me. My years of effort were dismissed as practice. I left without arguing. As I walked out, my father called, "You're not welcome back until you learn respect." That week, Julia's shower photos flooded social media. Dozens of relatives smiling with her, posting comments like, "So proud of you, Julia." No mention of me or my graduation. It was as if I had been erased from the family entirely. At a family cookout weeks later, my uncle laughed. "You shouldn't have skipped Julia's big day. That was selfish." My aunt agreed. "Yes, your absence really cast a shadow." They acted as if I had boycotted her event, not that my own had been abandoned. No one believed my side, or cared. That night, lying awake, something hardened in me. For years, I believed if I worked hard enough, my family would notice. Now I knew, nothing I did would ever compare to Julia. It was a painful truth, but a clear one. "They said they never meant to hurt me," she said once, but her voice sounded unsure. "They're just overwhelmed right now. Julia needs them." She wanted to believe the best, yet the doubt in her tone was finally obvious. I liked her too much to lay out the whole truth, so I told her I was busy or that I needed time. Then I sat in the quiet of my apartment, torn between missing her warmth and resenting the family she protected. One night, I got a voicemail from my father that cut deeper than any before. His voice was steady, almost practiced. "Patrick, your behavior has been unacceptable. We've discussed this, and we can't take you back until you apologize to your sister and the family. You're isolating yourself, and that's on you. We'll pray you come to your senses." There it was again. Apologize. As if the offense were mine. As if I had abandoned them. I remember sitting on my bed, phone in hand, my hands shaking. That single word felt like a leash they expected me to fasten around my own neck. But in the fog of that sorrow, a new idea started to form. If I was already the villain in their story, maybe I didn't have to keep playing the part. Maybe I didn't have to spend my whole life chasing their approval. I wasn't ready to act. I didn't have the strength yet. But late at night, in the silence of my flat, I began to prepare silently. Not grand plans for revenge, just small steps, to reclaim pieces of myself that had been chipped away over the years. Framing my diploma, saving for a larger place, finding people who saw me, not only as my sister's shadow. It was a tentative decision, but a beginning. And while I hadn't decided the full shape of it, I knew this. If my family expected me to be the forgotten son forever, they were in for a surprise. The change didn't happen overnight. At first it was subtle, almost imperceptible, like planting seeds unsure if they'd sprout. I started with my diploma. On a Saturday morning, I took it to a framer's. The woman behind the counter helped me pick a simple black frame with a matte finish. When I hung it above my desk, the flat felt less empty. That piece of paper became more than proof of absence. It testified to my perseverance. Every late shift, every article written at 3 a.m., every sacrifice, it was mine. Work became the next turning point. I'd been in an entry-level role for only a few months, mostly doing small tasks and keeping my head down. Once I stopped trying to please my family, I leaned into my job. I volunteered for unwanted projects. I stayed late, not out of obligation, but to learn. My boss noticed. One afternoon she said, "Patrick, I see how hard you're working. How would you feel about leading the next project proposal?" My heart raced. It wasn't glamorous, spreadsheets and research, but it was a chance to prove myself on my terms. I poured myself into it. While my family planned gender reveals and newborn photo shoots, I was at work, watching presentation tutorials and refining my pitch until I could deliver it in my sleep. When the day came, I stood before a panel of executives, palms sweating, but voice steady. I presented every detail with a confidence I hadn't known I had. The room was quiet for a beat before the department head said, "That's the most thorough proposal we've seen from a junior associate in years." My supervisor smiled, and for the first time in a long while, I felt truly seen. The acknowledgement came with a small raise that eased the chronic tightness in my chest. With that money, I upgraded my place. Nothing lavish, just a one-bedroom with more light and a kitchen that didn't feel like a closet. I painted the walls myself, stocked shelves with books I'd wanted to read, and bought a decent coffee maker. Slowly, the apartment reflected me, instead of reminding me of my shortcomings. The biggest change came in my social life. I had always kept people at arm's length after years of being pushed out at home. But as my confidence at work grew, I started to open up. I said yes to after-work drinks, joined trivia nights with colleagues, and let a few friendships deepen. Alex, a coworker, became a close friend and the first person I told everything to. The missed graduation, the baby shower, my father's message. I expected skepticism, but he shook his head and said, "Man, that's rough. No wonder you've been carrying that weight. But your worth isn't tied to them. You're building something real." His words stuck. For years I'd waited for validation from my family, but someone outside that circle reminded me I didn't need their approval to exist. The more I worked on myself, the clearer it became. I wasn't powerless. I noticed the gap when I checked social media. Julia's baby showers, nursery photos, and posts about the miracle of motherhood filled my feed, but cracks showed beneath the surface. Derek, her boyfriend, seemed less present each month. Rumors began about money troubles and arguments behind closed doors. Meanwhile, my life was quietly improving. I wasn't rich or famous, but I had stability I'd earned. The real turning point came when my boss asked me to consider the management training program. "It's competitive," she said, "but I think you'd be a strong candidate." My chest tightened. A year earlier, I'd been the kid sitting alone at graduation, staring at a text demanding an apology. Now someone saw leadership potential in me. That night, I sat under my framed diploma, filled out the application for the first time, thinking about what I wanted, not whether my parents would approve. The power I had once craved in their eyes was starting to show up in my own. The past still lingered. Their words were harsh and heavy. Even as I built a life without them, I knew it wasn't over. Relatives who'd abandoned me would likely return. When they did, they would meet someone different from the boy they rejected. And strangely, the tides began to shift. For the first time, I wasn't chasing approval. People were seeking me out. My name circulated at higher levels at work. Not only for the management program, but because of my knack for organizing chaos. When a project fell apart, I became the calm person everyone turned to. That reputation brought influence. When I got into the management program, it felt like a new world. Leadership seminars, executive mentors, strategy sessions. Doors that once seemed closed opened. Valerie, a perceptive CEO, took an interest. After one presentation, she told me, "Patrick, you have something people can't fake. Resilience. Don't waste it. Learn how to use it." Her words became a mantra. I learned to manage people, navigate politics, and think long-term, skills that applied beyond work because my family hadn't disappeared. They were still around, living a filtered version of life online. Julia had her son Noah, and the family celebrated like it was a revelation. My news feed overflowed with smiling grandparents, pastel blankets, and messages about how family is everything. I almost laughed. They'd rewritten the story to look like perfection, but reality leaks. A cousin I trusted pulled me aside over coffee. "Patrick, your parents have been asking about you," she said. "They say you're distant, that you've lost your way. They're making it sound like you're the problem." My jaw tightened. Of course they were. They couldn't admit they'd abandoned me, so they invented a narrative where I'd abandoned them. She added, casually, "Julia and Derek are having money problems. He's not working steadily, and the baby costs are piling up. Your parents are stressed. They're covering more than they expected." My coffee tasted bitter. For years, I'd scraped by while they lavished help on Julia. Now their chosen star was faltering, and the roles shifted. Unlike them, I had built something solid without their help. Around the same time, my employer handed me a high-profile account. It wasn't just a promotion. It came with a large raise and visibility. If I succeeded, I'd build a reputation across the company. I worked with everything I had, channeling pain and rejection into focus. The project was a hit, and I was offered a permanent management role. My pay doubled. My name began appearing in company newsletters. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I moved into a modern apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown. I bought a reliable car. In meetings, people listened. I was no longer invisible. Then my mother texted, "Patrick, love, it's been too long. We'd love for you to come see Noah." The same mother who told me to apologize was now using her grandchild as bait. A week later, my father called. I didn't answer, but the message had that calm, controlling tone I knew. "It's time to let go of the past. Your family needs you. Noah needs his uncle." Those words landed differently. For years I needed them. They had turned me away. Now the roles reversed. And with that reversal came a dangerous thought: payback. I didn't reply immediately. I let weeks pass, kept my phone on mute, and deleted voicemails without listening. It wasn't pettiness, it was about timing. They weren't in control for once, and I wanted them to feel it slowly. Then my cousin dropped a line. "Julia's been asking about you. They keep saying, if only Patrick would step up." That phrase cut. For years, I'd been ignored and mocked. Now their golden girl struggled, and they expected me to fix it. Not this time. That weekend, I dressed sharply in a blue suit and polished shoes, drove my car to my parents' house, and rang the bell. My mother's face lit up. She hugged me, but it felt practiced, too sweet. My father sat in the living room holding Noah, Julia on the couch. The baby gurgled, innocent in the middle of it all. "Look at you," my father said, admiring my watch. "Doing well, huh?" "Better than well," I replied, then paused. "I heard you've been having difficulties." Julia's jaw tightened. "If you're here to rub it in, don't bother." My mother hurried to smooth things over. "Your sister means things have been difficult. Derek's hours were cut, and the baby expenses are overwhelming. We thought, as family, you could help." There it was, the request. The same family that skipped my graduation, that told me to apologize while I sat alone on the biggest day of my life, now wanted my help. The room went quiet. I looked each of them in the eye. "You want my help?" I asked slowly. "You made your choice that day," I continued. "You chose who mattered, and now I'm making mine." I slid a card across the table. Not a check, only my business card with my new title. I was in control. The next day, my phone exploded. Missed calls and messages ranged from pleading to furious. "Patrick, please," my mother texted. "Your sister is in tears. We never meant to hurt you. Can't you help us just once?" My father called me selfish. I didn't respond. For the first time, their problems didn't feel like burdens I had to carry. It felt like justice. The weeks that followed were strange. For years, I'd clung to scraps of attention. Now my phone wouldn't stop buzzing the other way. My parents swung between guilt and anger. My mother's messages were heartbreaking appeals. My father's were commands. Julia was venomous. One text read, "You think you're better than me now? Don't forget who sacrificed everything for you to live a normal life." I stared at that line, baffled. What sacrifice had she made for me? I ignored them, not out of spite, but because I owed them nothing. Every call declined. Every message unanswered was a quiet declaration. I was no longer theirs to control. Even I was surprised by how badly the fallout hit them. My cousin called late, excited. "Your parents are furious. They've told everyone you refuse to help." Aunt Ruth replied, "Maybe if you treated Patrick better, he'd want to help." It's unraveling. Then came the shock. Derek packed up and left. No warning, no goodbye. He walked out, leaving Julia with a newborn and unpaid bills. The parents tried to hide it, but secrets leak. Whispers turned to pity at church. The pedestal crumbled. My father even came to my office once, but security turned him away. He stood outside for an hour, red-faced and pacing before leaving. That night he left a voicemail, voice breaking, "We only need your aid." I didn't give in. They wanted control, the old dynamic where I was the neglected son, tugged by their strings. That person ceased to exist. Months passed. My career kept rising. Another promotion, recognition beyond the organization. The first time I traveled with a passport in hand. My flat filled with friends who celebrated my wins without envy. Every step forward felt like reclaiming a piece of the boy they tried to erase. Meanwhile, the family that mocked me started to fall apart. Julia moved back home, independence gone, her life reduced to strained silence and financial stress. My parents faced uncomfortable questions about why their son seldom visited and why their family image didn't match reality. The last straw was my grandmother's birthday. She was the only one I'd agreed to see. I booked a small dining room at her favorite restaurant. She hugged me tearfully and whispered, "I'm so proud of you." As the evening went on, I saw my parents and Julia enter, uninvited. They must have found out from someone. They tried to approach, but the maitre d' stopped them at the door, saying it was a private event. My mother called, voice trembling, "Patrick, please let us in, we're family." The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to me. I stood, walked to the doorway, and looked at them one last time. Their faces were desperate and humbled, stripped of the arrogance they once wore. "Family," I said softly, "doesn't abandon you when you need them most. Family doesn't erase you. You made your choice, and now I've made mine." I returned to the table. The maitre d' closed the door behind me. My grandmother squeezed my hand, her smile steady. The noise of the restaurant fell away, and I felt the warmth of people who actually cared. In that moment, I understood the truth. I hadn't lost a family. I'd built one. The old family? The ones who demanded apologies and left me standing alone.